Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, how did I get here? Whether it's extra weight, a loss of energy, or feeling like your body is working against you. Truth is, we all have a story that brings us to that point. For me, my struggle wasn't with losing weight, it was actually the opposite. I struggled to gain weight. I had no idea why it was so hard until I realized this one thing. I wasn't calorie conscious. I didn't understand how the choices that I was making through nutrition every day were holding me back. I was going to the gym 5-6 days a week, training extremely hard, lifting heavy weights, and I just didn't see any changes in my body. And that's where I had to take a step back and ask myself, why is this happening? And this is where true transformation begins, when we start to develop awareness. Before we can change anything about our bodies or our health, we first need to understand what's going on. So in this video, I'm gonna break down for you all of the reasons that weight gain happens. And I'm gonna show you why understanding this is the key to transforming your body and turning things in the other direction. Let's dive into it. I'm gonna dive into what causes you to gain weight in the first place. There's a few different steps we'll go through. The first is understanding the basics of energy balance, right? The second is what happens when we eat food, right? The third is how do we gain weight, how do we gain body fat? And then the fourth is going to be diving into like the lifestyle factors that cause a lot of busy professionals to end up gaining weight, right? So for context, right, this is me. Okay, I used to be a skinny guy, skinny little soccer player, 140 to 150 pounds. This is me now, around 160 to 165 is typically where I fluctuate. When I was here trying to gain weight, I was very confused as to why it was not happening for me. And I would tell myself things like, I am just got a fast metabolism, or my sister is also slim, my sister's also skinny, or, you know, my dad didn't start gaining weight until he was in his 40s or his 50s. So it's just not gonna happen for me until I get there. And it wasn't until I got around a group of fitness professionals. This was probably like 4 or 5 years ago at my last job. And I was expressing to them that, yo, I'm working out 5-6 days a week in the gym. I'm just not seeing the results. And they would ask me like, well, how much are you eating? How much calories are you eating? I had no answer, right? I had no answer for that. And they broke down to me, oh, if you want to build muscle, you have to eat more food. And once I got to tracking my calories, I recognized, all right, I'm eating 1,500 to 1,700 calories per day. That's not going to cut it. It's not enough. But in doing that, it gave me the clarity that I needed around why I was unable to see the results that I was looking for. And I'm sure some of you are in a position where you want to lose weight, and you're thinking to yourself a lot of these same things, like my whole family's big. Maybe this is just how we are, right? Or I have a slow metabolism, so I just can't lose weight because my metabolism is too slow. Or I'm going through perimenopause, and my hormones is the reason why I can't lose weight. And this is one of the main reasons I want to go through this, so that you understand like what causes weight gain versus what doesn't, right? So there's 3 ways to gain weight. You can gain weight in muscle mass, you can gain weight in water weight, you can gain weight through body fat. To gain muscle mass, which is the healthiest way to gain weight, like it requires you to be extremely intentional. You have to eat an adequate amount of calories and an adequate amount of protein, and you have to strength train consistently in order to facilitate muscle growth. So if you're not doing any of those things, the weight that you have been gaining or that you are gaining is not coming from muscle mass, because you're not doing the things necessary to gain weight from building muscle, right? So that's the first way. The second way is through just water retention. And this is one that's temporary, right? And this can be from increasing the amount of carbs that you're having. You have temporary water gain because of glycogen. Each gram of glycogen holds 4 grams of water. So if you increase the amount of carbs that you're having, temporarily your body is going to retain some water, right? If you are having fluctuations with your hormones, that's another reason that you can retain some water. If you have higher sodium intake, higher salt, there's certain medications. These are all different things that can cause your weight to fluctuate or go up and down due to water retention, but it's not permanent. That's a piece that you got to understand, right? It's not something that is permanent. Water retention, like daily fluctuations in regards to your weight because of water, is absolutely normal, right? Now, the third way is through gaining body fat, right? Through fat gain. And this happens when you consume more calories than your body uses. The body's going to take those excess calories and it's going to store it as body fat, right? And in some instances, this is beneficial. So if, let's say, someone is trying to build muscle, they're increasing the amount of calories that they need to consume to facilitate muscle growth. they will store some body fat. It's natural. Bodybuilders do it all the time. They go through a bulking phase. Once they pack on the muscle they want to pack on, then they go through a cutting phase to lose the excess body fat. Now, unnecessary or excessive fat gain is where people get into trouble, right? Because that increases your risk for a lot of different things like chronic diseases, hypertension, diabetes, certain cancers, things along those lines, is when you're just gaining body fat. And that is what a majority of people who are overweight need to address is losing body fat, right? So that's what we're going to focus on today. And in terms of some of the keys that you need to understand, 1 pound of body fat is 3,500 calories. So we cannot address fat gain or fat loss without paying attention to calories. A calorie is simply a unit used to measure energy, right? That's all it is. The same way you use like inches or feet to measure height, like calories is just a unit used to measure energy. And the first law of thermodynamics says energy cannot be created, right? It cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred. That is a law. That's the law of physics, right? So the food that you're consuming, it is fuel. It has energy in it. The purpose of the fuel is to keep us alive, okay? So when you consume this energy from food and you don't use it, you don't utilize it, so you're not moving, you're not exercising, you don't know how much you need to be consuming to maintain your weight, then what ends up happening, right? There's an overflow, similar to with a gas tank. A gas tank, when you fill up your gas tank, there's only so many liters of gas that it can hold, right? The difference between a gas tank and your body, when you put too much gas in the car, it's going to overflow, right? You fill the tank, it can only take so much, it's going to overflow. With your body, if you're feeding it more calories than it needs, that overflow, it's going to get stored, okay? And these are all things that you need to kind of just understand as we move forward, right? So when you consume food, it gets digested and stored in 2 forms. One is glycogen, which your body uses for short-term energy. The second is body fat, which it uses for long-term energy. Glycogen, it gets capped relatively quickly. Body fat, we have way more capacity to store body fat. Okay, so the long and short of this, and we'll dive into some of the reasons that people end up in a space where they're over-consuming calories, but the long and short of it is that you're consuming more than you're utilizing. Like that's always the bottom line. Even if you have like an issue with your thyroid, okay, or even if you are going through perimenopause, or even if it doesn't matter what the situation is, something has happened that has caused a shift in energy where you are now consuming more than your body is utilizing or more than you need. Okay. And some people may be thinking, well, I don't eat that much food. So how am I still gaining weight? I'm not eating that much food. You have to understand there's a difference between the quantity and the volume of the food that you're eating and the energy that's in that food, right? Quantity doesn't always mean that it's high in the amount of energy that's in it. And I'll give you an example. I spoke to a guy today. He told me he has an obsession with Starbucks, right? And the drink that he was having was 500 calories from a Starbucks drink. 500 calories in a Starbucks drink. And when we consume these things, we're not thinking that this is adding to the amount of energy that we are intaking and then not utilizing. So maybe you might be only consuming 1,000 calories or 1,500 calories from food, but if you make 2 trips to Starbucks per day and it's 500 calories per drink, that's something that's going to take you up to 2,500 calories easy. You can easily add on an extra 1,000 calories just from Starbucks, or cooking with oil, or adding additional like butter to whatever it is that you're having, or additional sauces. Not saying you can't have these things, but if you're not aware of the amounts, those are little things where you could be consuming a lot of calories, but it's not a high volume of food, and you're not able to make the distinction between the two, or you're not able to make the connection around why you're struggling to lose weight, even though you think that you're not eating much, right? So I'll give you an example of gaining weight. If it takes 2,000 calories, it is just keep it simple for a math extremely simple. If you're consuming 2,000 calories to maintain your weight, if you consume 2,000, you'll maintain it. You won't gain, you won't lose. That's your maintenance levels, right? So after your body uses the energy for digestion, for walking, to regulate your body temperature, to work out, whatever the case may be, if you consume 2,000, it takes 2,000 to keep you alive. You will not gain weight, you will not lose weight, right? Your metabolism is something that works around the clock. It's literally what keeps you alive. Your body doesn't stop burning calories, right? But if you're meant to be consuming 2,000 to maintain your weight, and each day you're at 2,200, well, you're giving your body 200 more calories each day that it doesn't need.
So like we mentioned earlier, what happens with those excess calories, it gets stored as fat. So if 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories, you're having an extra 200 calories every single day. In 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to gain an extra pound. You do this for a whole year, you're 10 to 12, maybe even 15 pounds heavier by the end of the year, just from consuming an extra 200 calories on a daily basis. And for context, like 200 calories, that's like a handful of nuts, right? So it's not easy to overdo it, which is why it's important to at least become calorie conscious and understand what is in the food that I am consuming, how much energy is actually in this soda that I'm drinking, or this drink that I just made, or this sandwich that I just made. How much am I actually intaking, and where do I need to be for my specific goals? Okay, so that's just an overview of how you gain weight. You're just consuming a little bit more than what you need. Now I'll dive into a couple reasons that cause people to overconsume calories, so that you can identify, well, where am I going wrong? Where am I actually getting caught up, and what's causing me to overconsume calories, right? So one, especially for busy professionals, majority of our clients are people working in like healthcare, or they're working corporate jobs. They might be running their own business. They're extremely busy. Plus they have family, plus they have all these other obligations. Some of them are single parents. So like the load is double, right? And the stress from work, from life, from the demands on the job, deadlines, all these different things puts them in a space where like cortisol gets elevated. When cortisol is elevated for a long period of time because you're stressed, you start to experience cravings, right? Which is why people are stress eating quite a lot. Okay, some of it is emotional eating, or a way for you to cope. You get like a dopamine hit when you eat these sweet foods, or these snacks, or these, all these different things that just make you feel good because you're experiencing the stress from work. So the answer to this is you're going to have to deal with the root cause of it, right? You're going to have to get better at stress management, identifying your triggers, things along those lines. These are the things that we help our clients work through, is really like figuring out where is all the stress coming from? What can you proactively do to manage it a little bit better? But this is one of the main reasons that a lot of busy professionals gain weight. It's just the amount of stress and pressure that you're under in your day-to-day life that gets mismanaged, and then you're turning to food to deal with it. So creating a little bit more structure in that area is something that could be extremely helpful to help you get your calories back under control. But it's one of the main reasons why a lot of people gain weight is the stress is just, it's mismanaged. If your body's producing too much cortisol over time, that leads to insulin resistance. Because when cortisol goes up, your body releases insulin to bring your blood sugar levels back down. If you're overproducing insulin and you're not utilizing the sugar that's in your blood, a lot of people become insulin resistant just from stress, right? If you become insulin resistant, that impacts all of your other hormones, hunger hormones, satisfaction hormones. So stress is a real problem for busy professional people. Okay. The second is changing jobs, right? So you've had a shift in the type of work that you do. This is something we saw very common during the pandemic. People were on the job site, maybe with their commute, they might be traveling, they walk around a little bit more, they were taking public transportation, whatever the case may be, and then boom, they got shifted to working from home. And now all of the movement that they were getting, all of the calories that they were burning through that lifestyle, it's come down because now you're just at the house and sitting down, you're behind a desk, right? So going back to that first point, the energy balance has shifted. So maybe you're still eating the same amount, but all of a sudden your movement has drastically come down, and you're wondering why you're gaining weight. Maybe the food hasn't changed, but the movement has. So remember, it comes down to calories in versus calories out. So the shift in jobs tends to be another reason why a lot of people gain weight. The lifestyle has changed. You're not as active. We even see this with people who are younger. When you were in college and in school before kids, you had so much more time to yourself. You were out and about, so much more movement. Now you get older, more responsibilities. The job is sedentary. You're not as active. That energy balance has shifted. Now you're over consuming calories because the movement has come down, right? That's the next one. Another one is hormonally. And this is a common one as well. So whether you have like hypothyroidism, or for women going through perimenopause, things along those lines, it can have an impact on your metabolism. If you have an underactive thyroid, your body's burning less calories. It's not burning the calories as efficiently. So if the nutrition stays the same, you're consuming the same amount of calories, and then this condition, this underactive thyroid, has your metabolism slow down, well, now what happens? You're in a calorie surplus again. You're consuming more calories than your body needs because your metabolism has slowed down and you haven't made an adjustment. So now you're gaining weight, right? If you're going through perimenopause, it's a very similar situation where your appetite increases. You're feeling for more food, right? Your metabolism starts to slow down as well. All of these different little shifts put you in a space where now you're consuming more calories than you need, right? Another thing that happens with women during perimenopause is the way your body starts to store body fat, it also shifts. So in the past, when you used to store body fat in your hips, right? Because it's a form of your body protecting the child, right? That's why they call it like childbearing hips. But when you start going through perimenopause and you're no longer able to have children, there's no reason for your body to store the fat in that area. It gets shifted to your midsection. So all of a sudden you start storing body fat in your stomach, and women wonder why, okay, as soon as I cross this age, all of a sudden I have this area of fat that wasn't there before, right? These are all just different causes for why you may be gaining weight or gaining fat or storing the fat in different body parts, right? The next one is aging. Similar to the hormonal piece, you start aging, your muscle mass decreases naturally. Muscle mass is more metabolic than body fat. You burn more calories maintaining muscle mass than you do maintaining body fat. So as you're getting older, you're not being proactive and doing the things that you need to do to maintain muscle or to build muscle. Well, what happens? Your body starts to burn less and less calories. And if you're eating the same, you're burning less and less calories. What happens? You're in a calorie surplus again. So as you can see with all these examples, there's something happening that's causing the energy balance to shift where you're consuming more than you need to, right? Lack of sleep is another one that impacts your hunger hormones, satisfaction hormones. For busy people that are working long hours, looking after the family, you got to do this for the kids, and then you're not prioritizing sleep. You don't have any structure in place. You don't understand the importance of it. Now your hunger hormones are out of whack. Well, what happens the following day? You're irritable, stress is worse, you have less willpower to say no to certain things, you're hungry all the time just because you're not sleeping, right? So that's another reason. Medication, something that can also impact your appetite. So all of these things are just things that lead to either consuming more or burning less, shifting the energy balance. Environmental, cultural factors is another common thing, where big portions may just be part of your culture. That's how you guys eat, right? I got a lot of African friends, like the portion sizes in African culture is crazy. They want this big mountain of rice with stew on top of it. And it's like, yo, this is not, this is not aligned with the goals you have. You're gonna have to start to do things a little bit differently. Brunch culture is another one. Every weekend, going out to eat these massive meals and bottomless mimosas, things along those lines, you're over consuming calories due to what's going on culturally. For me growing up, I was told like I need to finish my plate. Right. Like if I didn't finish my food, it was almost like disrespectful to my family, to my mom, to my grandmother, who like worked to make money to feed me and prepare these meals. It's like, yo, if you don't finish the food, it's almost like a form of disrespect. Again, culturally, it's something that over time, if you don't become aware of that and start working on it, you can be over consuming calories just because of that, right? Having kids is another one. Time constraints, more responsibilities, going to kids' parties, right? At the school, they got all these snacks and all these different things, just the environment itself. At work, I know a lot of nurses, they have a bunch of snacks and they have potlucks and all these different things. The environment itself can be putting you in a position where you're over consuming calories, right? Those are some of the most common reasons that everyday people, busy professionals, end up in a space where they're gaining weight, right? So this is kind of the long and short of what causes you to end up in a position where you need to lose weight and you need to drop body fat. I wanted to address this piece first. Next week we'll dive into like how you actually lose body fat, right? What steps you need to take, tying it back into the energy balance. Okay, how do you create a calorie deficit, right? An example of fat loss, and then mistakes that you need to avoid making when you're trying to lose body fat, because there is a wrong way to do it, right? Where you're trying to be too aggressive with it and you're just focused on either consuming way less calories or burning way more calories. Now you're in too big of a deficit. You're losing muscle mass. You're slowing down your metabolism, and then it's too aggressive. Now you revert back to what you were doing, and what you gain, like we touched on earlier, it's not going to be muscle mass because you're not doing the things to build muscle. So if you do it the wrong way and you lose a bunch of muscle mass, you lose a lot of weight in the process, can't keep up with it, gain it back, you end up worse off because now you have changed your body composition, but you've increased the amount of body fat that you have on you, right? So we'll dive into that a little bit more next week, but I wanted you guys to at least get clarity around how this works in terms of gaining body fat, so you can relieve yourself of some of the confusion, or even at times like the excuses. I hear people say a lot of the time, like it's the hormones, or I'm just built this way, my metabolism is broken, or my metabolism is shot. These things aren't valid. You know, like if your metabolism was broken, you would not be here. You would be dead, right? Your metabolism is working around the clock. Our bodies are burning calories when we're sleeping, when we're eating, when we're like our bodies are burning calories around the clock, right? So I just wanted you guys to kind of understand how this works.